Staying safe in castings, what young performers and parents need to know. Hello, and welcome back to the Drama Coach podcast. I'm Lisa Southam, actor, drama coach, communication coach, mum of young performers, and host of this podcast, where we talk about acting, auditions, training, confidence, and the industry, and how to support young performers in a grounded and healthy way. And today's episode is a serious one. It's about staying safe in castings. Now, I don't want this episode to frighten anyone. That's really important. Most people working in the industry are professional, kind, hardworking, and trying to do things properly. There are brilliant casting directors and brilliant agents. There are brilliant teachers, directors, producers, chaperones, and creatives. And I don't want young performers or parents to feel scared of every opportunity that comes their way, but I do want you to feel informed, because knowledge is power. And when you understand what a professional casting process should look like, it becomes much easier to spot when something feels off. It becomes easier to ask questions. It becomes easier to pause before saying yes. And it becomes easier to protect yourself or your child without feeling awkward, rude, or dramatic. So today we're going to talk about red flags, green flags. I know those terms are overused, but I think they're appropriate here. What to check before attending a casting or sending a tape, how parents can support young performers, what older teens and early 20s performers need to know, and why trusting your gut is not unprofessional. It's sensible. And before we go any further, I want to say clearly, no job, no credit, no opportunity, no casting, no agent, no director, no big break is worth compromising your safety. Never. You can probably tell in my voice that I feel rather passionate about that. And I have been contacted on occasions with things that have been flagged up to me as inappropriate, and I have helped individuals to navigate that and to warn others. So that's perhaps why I'm sounding particularly passionate about this. So why it matters. The performing industry can be really exciting, especially when you're starting out. You see a casting call, someone messages you, someone says they love your look, they're casting a film, they're looking for fresh talent. Someone says this could lead to amazing opportunities. And if you're a young performer or the parent of one, that can feel thrilling, because so much of the industry does involve waiting. Although, as you'll know from my podcast, I don't advocate waiting. I advocate doing other things whilst you're waiting. But there we go. You might feel like you're waiting to be seen. You're waiting for auditions, for a result, for an agent, for a reply, waiting for someone to say, yes, we're interested. So when something does appear, it's very easy to get swept up in the excitement. And that is exactly why we need to slow down. Not become cynical, not assume the worst, just slow down. Because genuine opportunities can usually withstand a few sensible questions. A professional person will not be offended because you ask who is involved. They will not be offended because you ask where the audition is being held. They won't be offended because you ask about safeguarding. And they won't be offended because you ask whether a parent, guardian, chaperone, or agent can be copied in. They will not be offended because you want details in writing. In fact, a professional person should expect those questions. So I want to give you permission right at the start of this episode. You are allowed to check. You are allowed to ask, to pause, to say, can you send that through officially? You're allowed to say, I'll come back to you once I've checked the details. And you're allowed to say no. And for young performers listening, you're never being difficult by telling a trusted adult that something feels wrong. You're never being silly, you're never making a fuss. If something feels uncomfortable, confusing, secretive, pressurized, or unsafe, tell someone. What a professional casting should feel like. So first, let's talk about what a normal professional casting process might include. There should usually be clear information. That might include the production name, the casting director or company name, the production company, the role details, dates, location, pay or fee information, usage if it's a commercial, and what is required for the audition. Not every casting notice will have every single detail at the very first stage, especially if there are NDAs or sensitive projects involved. That's normal. But there should still be enough information for you or your agent to understand what you're being asked to do. A professional casting should not feel mysterious in a manipulative way. It should not feel like someone's deliberately hiding basic information. It should not feel like you're being rushed into something before you've had time to check. And it should not feel like you're being asked to keep secrets from your parent, guardian, agent, or trusted adult. For young performers, communication should usually go through a parent, guardian, or agent. For professional work involving children, there are also legal and safeguarding responsibilities around licensing, supervision, chaperones, hours, education, and welfare. If someone is approaching a child or young teen directly and trying to cut out the parent or agent, that is a serious red flag. For older teens and early 20s performers, you may be managing more of your own communication. That's part of growing up in the industry, but you still do not have to handle everything alone. You can still check with an agent, parent, coach, teacher, union, experienced performer, or trusted adult. Independence does not mean isolation. Red flag number 1. The location feels wrong. Let's start with one of the biggest red flags, location. Professional in-person castings should take place in appropriate spaces. Casting studios, production offices, rehearsal rooms, recognised workspaces, theatre spaces, schools or studios where appropriate. Somewhere that makes sense. If someone asks you to attend a casting alone, at a private home, hotel room, isolated location, or somewhere that doesn't feel appropriate, stop. Ask questions. Check who else will be there. Check whether it's a recognised professional environment. Check whether your agent knows about it. Check whether a parent or chaperone can attend if you are under 18. And if it feels wrong, don't go. That's not being unprofessional, that's being sensible. For parents, please don't be afraid to say, can you confirm the full address, who will be present, and what safeguarding arrangements are in place? For older performers, you can say, can you confirm the venue and who will be in the room? A genuine casting process should not require you to ignore basic safety instincts. Red flag number 2. They want to communicate secretly. Another huge red flag is secrecy. If someone says, don't tell your parents, don't tell your agent, don't mention this to anyone, message me privately, let's keep this between us, don't bring anyone with you, that is not exciting, that is not exclusive, that is not a sign that you're special. That's a warning sign. Professional confidentiality is different. Sometimes you may be asked not to share audition material publicly. You may be asked not to post about a project online, and you may be asked to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. All that can be absolutely normal, but that's very different from being told to hide communication from your parent, guardian, agent, or trusted adult. For young performers especially, no legitimate adult should be trying to isolate you from the people who keep you safe. And parents, this is one of the things I would really talk to your child about, not in a frightening way, but in a clear way. You can say, if anyone ever tells you not to tell me, that's exactly when you must tell me. That one sentence can be really powerful. So red flag number 3, pressure, flattery, or urgency. A lot of unsafe or unprofessional situations rely on pressure. They want you to act quickly before you think. They want you to feel lucky. They want you to feel like if you ask questions, you'll lose the chance. You might hear things like, "We need an answer now. This is a huge opportunity. Don't miss your chance. I can make you famous. You have exactly the look we need. You're perfect, but we need you to trust us." Other people would jump at this. Now, genuine castings can sometimes move quickly. That's true. Sometimes tapes are needed the same day. Sometimes production schedules are tight or have changed. Sometimes a casting assistant is working under pressure. I found this especially in some commercial projects. But urgency should not remove professionalism. You can ask for details. You can still check the source. You can still say, "Thank you. Please send the information through and I'll come back to you." And if someone gets angry because you want to check basic safety details, that tells you something. Professional people may be busy, they may be brief, they may be direct, but they should not bully, manipulate, or pressure you into ignoring your boundaries. Red flag number 4, money up front. Let's talk about money. There are legitimate costs in the acting world. Headshots cost money. Classes cost money. Spotlight costs money. Show reels can cost money. Training can cost money. Travel costs money. But be very careful if a so-called casting, agency, or opportunity says that you must pay up front to get the job, secure the role, join their books, access guaranteed casting, or take part in a project that's being presented as professional work. There are scams that target hopeful performers and their parents. Sometimes they promise huge opportunities. Sometimes they flatter a child. Sometimes they suggest the performer has been selected. Sometimes they push expensive photo packages. I've seen that a lot. Profile fees, workshops, or admin fees. So ask, what exactly am I paying for? Is this optional or required? Is there a contract? Who is the company? Can I check reviews? Are they listed anywhere credible? Do reputable industry people know them? What happens if I say no? And please remember, a genuine agent should not be making their money primarily by selling you expensive extras. A genuine casting should not ask you to pay to audition, and no one can guarantee a career. No one. Red flag 5. Vague details. Another warning sign is vagueness. We're casting for a major platform, big production, famous director, can't say too much, exciting opportunity, lots of exposure, great for your career. Now again, some professional projects are confidential. Sometimes the real project title is hidden. Sometimes scripts are watermarked. Sometimes casting breakdowns are limited. But there should be a professional trail. Who is casting? Who is producing? Who has contacted you? What is the role? What is required? Where will it take place? Is it paid? What are the dates? For parents, especially if your child is unrepresented and you see an open casting online, I would always do basic checks. Search the names, look at the company, check the official website, check professional profiles, ask in trusted industry groups, contact the casting company through an official channel if you're unsure. And if the information remains vague, step back. You do not have to chase every opportunity. On a side note, actually, when I first saw the Harry Potter casting for the new series, which my daughter did audition for and did quite well with, I thought it was a scam to start with, and I did a lot of chasing around and double checking before I started advertising it and letting my daughter and some of her friends audition for it as well. So I did do a bit of a deep dive. It sounded too good to be true on the surface, but it was a real casting. And you know what? There was no harm. What did that research take me? A couple of hours or days or whatever. There was plenty of time for the deadline, and it didn't stop anybody from doing that legitimate casting. It just made me feel safe that I was sharing a legitimate opportunity. So it doesn't take long to do your research and check things out. So red flag number 6, the audition material feels inappropriate. This is a sensitive but important area. Audition material should be appropriate to the performer's age, the role, the production, and the context. For young performers, parents should always know what material is being requested. If a child or teenager is asked to perform something that feels unsuitable, uncomfortable, or beyond what is appropriate for their age, stop and ask questions. You can say, can you clarify the context of this scene? Is there alternative material? Can you confirm who will view this tape? Can you confirm the safeguarding process around this casting? For performers of any age, you should not be asked to do anything in an audition that crosses professional boundaries. You can always ask what is required before agreeing. You can always check whether an intimacy coordinator is involved if the production itself involves intimate content. And I would say nowadays there should absolutely be an intimacy coordinator. I was on a film, and though I didn't have any intimate scenes, 2 of the other actors did, and they were given an intimacy coordinator. This was an independent film that the actors were not getting paid for, but they still had the safety of an intimacy coordinator. That is standard. You can always say no to material that feels unsafe or exploitive. And I want to be really clear for young performers. If an adult asks you to send anything that feels private, exposing, inappropriate, secretive, or uncomfortable, do not send it. Tell a trusted adult immediately. You will not be in trouble. The adult asking is the problem, not you. Red flag number 7, direct messages to children. Social media has changed the industry. There are amazing connections online. People find classes, agents, casting calls, workshops, and opportunities through Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and other platforms. But social media also makes it easier for unsafe people to contact young performers directly. So this is a big one for parent-managed accounts. If your child has an acting account, dance account, performance account, or modelling account, please be careful about who can contact them and who reads those messages. Ideally, accounts for younger performers should be managed by parents or guardians. And with the legal changes potentially coming in the UK, it's looking like teens might also be off of social media. So again, those teens that were perhaps used to social media might end up with a parent-managed account or no account. A child should not be privately negotiating castings with adults online. Absolutely not. And if someone approaches them through DMs, don't panic, but do verify. Ask for an official email. Ask for company details. Ask who they're casting for. Check their professional presence. Check whether your agent knows them. If they claim to be from a known casting company, contact that company through the official website rather than relying on only the DM. And if someone refuses to move communication into a proper adult-managed or professional channel, then that's a red flag. For older teens and early 20s performers, the same principle applies. DMs can be a great starting point, and I've personally made some really useful professional relationships that started as an Instagram message, but proper details should always follow for castings. A professional opportunity should be able to move into a professional format. So let's move on to green flags. What good practice looks like. We've talked about those pesky red flags. Let's talk about the green ones. Because we don't want to raise performers who are afraid of everything. We want to raise performers who can recognise professionalism. Green flags might include clear written information, a known casting director or company, communication through an agent, parent, or professional email, an appropriate audition venue, clear instructions for a self-tape, reasonable material, no pressure to do anything immediately without checking, respectful communication, a clear fee, contract or agreement where relevant, safeguarding awareness for under 18s, a willingness to answer questions, a professional paper trail. For children, you want to know who is responsible for welfare, who is supervising, is it a parent or a licensed chaperone? Are performance licenses needed? I'd argue the answer is always yes. What are the hours? What is the environment? Who is the named contact? Again, professional people should understand why these questions matter, especially when children are involved. Self-tapes and online castings. A lot of casting now happens through self-tapes, and self-tapes can be brilliant. They can open doors, they can save on travel, they can give performers a chance to work in a familiar space. But they also create new safety considerations. Before sending a tape, check. Who requested it? Where is it being uploaded? Is it an official casting platform, agent submission, recognised production email or verified process? What materials are they asking for? Is the request age appropriate? Are they asking for personal information that isn't necessary? Do you know who will view it? For younger performers, parents should be involved at every stage. And I would be careful about posting audition tapes publicly, unless specifically advised and appropriate. I would argue that there's no need to post an audition tape. You might end up using sections or outtakes perhaps for your social media content, but I've never seen a casting that would ask you to put your tape out there in full publicly. So not everything needs to be online. Not every clip needs to be shared. A self-tape is part of a professional casting process, so treat it with care. For older performers, be mindful of what you send and where you send it. Keep copies of communication. Use professional email where possible. Don't send unnecessary personal details. And if something doesn't feel right, pause. The role of agents. A good agent can be a really important safety filter. They know the industry. They receive breakdowns. They submit clients. They negotiate fees. They understand what looks normal and what looks strange. For parents of young performers, this is one reason why representation can be useful when your child is ready for professional work. Not because every child needs an acting agent immediately, they don't, but because an agent can help filter opportunities. That said, having an agent doesn't mean you stop using your own judgment. And not having an agent doesn't mean you can't be safe. It just means you may need to check things more carefully. And if you're unrepresented, make sure you're using trusted casting sources, asking questions, and not relying only on someone's social media profile. And if you're approached by an agency, apply the same thinking. Who are they? Who do they represent? Do they have a proper website? Do they have genuine client credits? Are they asking for money up front? Are they pressuring you? Are they promising guaranteed work? Can you speak to existing clients? Are they clear about whether they are sole or non-sole? Are they clear about commission? An agent relationship should be professional, not mysterious, not manipulative, and not based on fear. What to do if something feels off? So what do you actually do if something feels wrong? First of all, pause. You don't have to reply instantly. You don't have to attend. You don't have to send that tape. You do not have to continue a conversation. Then screenshot or save the communication. Don't delete everything in a panic. Keep the messages, emails, profiles, names, numbers, links, and details. Then speak to someone. A parent, a guardian, an agent, a teacher, a coach, a chaperone, equity, a safeguarding lead, a trusted industry group moderator. If it involves a child or young person and you're worried about their safety, treat it seriously. If there is immediate danger, contact emergency services. If you're worried about a child's safety, but it's not an immediate emergency, you can contact appropriate safeguarding services, children's services, or organisations such as the NSPCC for advice. If the casting came through a platform, report to the platform. If it came through a group, report it to the moderators. If someone's pretending to be a casting director, agent or company, contact the real person or organisation through official channels so that they know their name may be being misused. And please don't worry about being embarrassed. This is how unsafe people get away with things. They rely on people feeling embarrassed, confused, or worried that they'll look foolish. You are not foolish for checking, you are not foolish for asking, and you are not foolish for reporting. You're helping protect other people too. For parents, create a family safety rule. If you have a young performer at home, I would create a simple family safety rule. Something like, all casting communication goes through a parent, guardian, or agent. Or, we never attend an audition unless we know who it's with, where it is, and who will be there. Or, if anyone asks you to keep something secret from me, you must tell me straight away. Make it normal, make it boring, make it part of the process. Not because you don't trust your child, but because it's your job to protect them. And I know you know this. And actually, I think it can be really empowering for young performers. After all, they are potentially going to grow into adult performers and do need to be aware of all of this safety when their safety is being looked after by themselves. They will learn that I can ask questions, I can have boundaries, I can trust my instincts. I don't have to be grateful for every opportunity. I don't have to make myself smaller to be chosen. I think that's a strong lesson, not just for acting, actually, but for life. For teens and early 20s, you are allowed to have boundaries. So for the teens and early 20s performers listening, this is especially important for you. You may be moving into more adult spaces. You might be applying for your own opportunities. You might be travelling alone. You might be talking to agents, directors, photographers, student filmmakers, producers, or other creatives. Actually, I've said early 20s, but do you know what? This can be appropriate to any actor of any age. It can be easy to think, I don't want to seem difficult. I don't want to miss my chance. I'm probably overacting. They know more than me. I should just be grateful. Please hear me on this. Professional boundaries are not difficult. They are part of the job. You can say, could you send the details by email? Who else will be present? Can I bring someone with me? Can you clarify what is required in the scene? Is this paid? That's a hard one for actors starting out. A lot of them are too afraid to ask. Ask, is it paid? Where will the footage be used? Can I see the contract? I'm not comfortable with that. I'm going to pass, but thank you. All of those questions and statements are valid, and you will not be judged by somebody who is professional if you ask them. If someone responds badly to any of these reasonable requests or boundaries, then that gives you information. You are not just auditioning for them. In a way, they are also showing you who they are. So pay attention. Right, the myth of the big break. I wanted to talk about the big break, in inverted commas, myth, because unsafe opportunities often feed off of this. They suggest that this is your one chance, your only chance, the door that will change everything. And I understand why that works. This industry can be really hard. Performers want opportunities. Parents want to support their children. Young people want to be seen. But a genuine career is not built on one risky yes. It's built over time with training, experience, good relationships, professional behaviour, resilience, patience, craft, and safe choices. If an opportunity disappears because you asked a safeguarding question, it wasn't the opportunity for you. And I would argue that you'd been protected from it. And if you'd listened to this podcast for a while, you'll know that I love to reframe rejection as protection or redirection. So I would say that's just happened to you, and lucky you, that was good. If someone loses interest because your parent or guardian is involved, that is not a loss for you. If someone gets annoyed because you want details in writing, that is not your dream slipping away. That's a warning system that's working. Your safety matters more than somebody else's urgency. A simple checklist before saying yes. So here is a simple checklist before you say yes to a casting, meeting, self-tape, or opportunity. Who is contacting me? Can I verify who they are? What is the project? Who is producing or casting it? Where will it take place? Who else will be there? Is it appropriate for my age or my child's age? Is the material suitable? Is the opportunity paid? Are there contracts, licenses, or safeguarding requirements? Is communication happening through a professional channel? Does my agent, parent, guardian, or trusted adult know? Is anyone asking me to keep secrets? Is anyone pressuring me? Does anything feel off? And the final question, would I feel comfortable explaining this opportunity to someone I trust? If the answer is no, then pause. I'm just going to take a quick moment to tell you that this episode is sponsored by Scene Tribe, the new network for the creative industries. Built around the work you've done and the people you've done it with, Scene Tribe helps performers, crew, creatives, agents, and producers build beautiful profiles and discover new opportunities through real collaborations. And actually, in an episode about safety, I think this matters because professional profiles, real credits, visible collaborations, and proper networks can help bring more transparency into the industry. No gatekeeping, no noise, just the work and the people behind it. You can find out more at scenetribe.com. Okay, let's get back to the episode. What safe support looks like. One of the best things we can do for young performers is surround them with safe, sensible adults. Not adults who are trying to live through them, not adults who push them into everything, not adults who dismiss their discomfort, but adults who listen, adults who check. Adults who understand the industry. Adults who can say, this looks fine, or let's ask more questions, or no, we're not doing that. That might be a parent, an agent, a drama teacher, a coach, a chaperone, a school safeguarding lead, a union, a trusted casting platform, a professional community. Nobody should have to navigate this alone. And this is one of the reasons I started this podcast, because parents of young performers are often expected to just know things. You're supposed to know what good castings look like, what an agent should do, and we've all heard about rogue agents lately as well. How self-tape works, what a chaperone is, what a performance license is, and how to get one. What's normal, what's not normal, what's industry standard, what's a red flag. And that can feel really overwhelming. So please don't beat yourself up if you're still learning. Just commit to learning, ask questions, check guidance, and speak to professionals. And don't let excitement override common sense. When your child really wants the opportunity, this can be hard. Because sometimes your child might really want something. They might say, but I want to do it, but they chose me, but everyone else is going, and what if I miss my chance? That's where we have to be the adult, isn't it? We can validate the feeling without ignoring the risk. Again, on this podcast, I'm not telling you how to parent. These are suggestions from my experience and from the things that I have seen and heard. So these are things that might work that you could say. I know this feels exciting and I'm proud that you're being considered, but my job is to check it properly first. Or, I understand you're disappointed, but this doesn't feel professional enough for us to say yes. Or, if it's genuine, they'll be able to answer these questions. That kind of response teaches your child that safety is not the enemy of opportunity. Safety is part of opportunity. A good opportunity should be safe, professional, and age appropriate. A note on trusting your gut. I just want to finish with this idea of trusting your gut. Sometimes people say, I can't explain it, something just felt off. That matters. Your instincts are information. They are not always the whole picture, and yes, we can sometimes feel nervous simply because something is new. But if your gut is saying, this feels secretive, rushed, inappropriate, this feels too good to be true, or this person is making me uncomfortable, then listen, pause, and check. You don't have to accuse anyone. You don't have to make a dramatic statement. You can simply step back and gather information. On a side note, obviously, if something has been inappropriate or dangerous, then do accuse and do follow the right channels for that. I'll make sure there's lots of information in the show notes to help you. So back to my point, if your gut's feeling off, you can step back and gather the information. Safety does not require you to prove danger before you're allowed to leave. You can leave because something just doesn't feel right. You can say no because you don't have enough information. And you can decide that an opportunity is not for you. There's no harm in that. Trust that gut instinct. So my final thoughts then, to bring this episode together. The industry can be wonderful. Performing can be and should be joyful. Auditions can be exciting. Castings can lead to brilliant opportunities. But safety has to come first. For young performers, parents, and early career actors, the message is not be scared. The message is be informed, be curious, be prepared, be professional, ask questions, keep trusted adults involved, check details, know your boundaries, and trust that a good opportunity will not require you to ignore your safety. No casting is worth secrecy. No role is worth pressure. No contact is worth cutting out the people who protect you. No career move is worth your well-being. And if something feels wrong, you are allowed to stop. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Drama Coach podcast. I know it was a little more serious, but as I said, things had been raised to me and I just couldn't not make this episode. I know it's been a serious episode, but I do believe that it's an important one. If you're a parent of a young performer, maybe this is a starting point for a calm conversation at home. If you're a teen or perhaps in your early years of performing, 20s, 30s, any age, please keep this episode somewhere that you can come back to it when you need a reminder that boundaries are professional. And if you know another performer, parent, drama teacher, or young actor who might find this useful, then please do share it with them. I'll put relevant safety links in the show notes, including Equity's guidance on staying safe at castings and auditions. And you can also follow me at The Drama Coach on socials for more acting tips, audition advice, confidence tools, and support for young performers and parents. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next time.